Hello and welcome to the Kilowatt Half Hour, a podcast about the world of EVs brought to you by the team at Electrifying.com.
We are back from China, and after recording last week's episode in a state of jet lag on our very first afternoon there, we thought we'd fill you in on what else we've been up to. And as the rest of the team are either jet lagged or enjoying an extended bank holiday weekend, I've got Steve Fowler back with me, also known as the EV editor of The Independent and my former boss. Hello, Steve. Welcome back.
Hello, Ginny. It was so much fun last week. It's great to be back. Thank you very much. Great podcast. Pleasure to be on it. But China.
China.
Huge. What did you make of it then?
Well, I know you've been out there a few times, and it was my first trip, and I've spent about the last 3 years kind of avoiding going because I don't know why. I think I knew it was going to be a really long, intense trip. These they're very organised and structured, these trips. You go out with a Chinese car maker and you inevitably spend a lot of time on buses and you look at factories and you look at showrooms. And I think I just felt with all the travel I do, I just didn't want to do it. And now I was really quite cross with myself thinking, why didn't I do it sooner? Because it's such an eye-opener, isn't it? It's astonishing, the scale of it all. But also what was the big eye-opener for me was how much I liked China itself and the people I met there. I thought it was great.
Yeah. Do you know what? I've come back, and this is probably the 10th time or more that I've been to China. And I've come back this time thinking, I really want to go on holiday there because it's just fascinating, because it's so many places you go to, and we're very lucky. We travel a lot, but it's all very samey. And China's just completely different. And you're right, the scale, and I know this isn't the car thing, but the thing that always gets me is how you can be driving along a road or on a train or something, and then you see a load of tower blocks. And they are accommodation for people, and they're sort of 30 stories high, and there are 10 or 20 of them grouped together. And then there's another 10 or 20 of them behind, and another 10. And, how many people are living in there? The scale of the place is enormous, and the scale of the car industry is incredible.
It's incredible. I think the other thing that really struck me, as I said, we spent 7 days there. The learning for me was that one day at the Beijing Auto Show is not enough. I literally don't even think we touched the sides of it. And that was, we didn't have a choice in that, sadly. But mainly because, as we said, it's so big. So you want to see things and you're almost walking half an hour from one end to the other. It's a lot to do. But the thing that really struck me when we were off on, driving around the different cities, and we went to Beijing and we went to Hangzhou in eastern China, was that there are very few European cars on the road now. So all of these,
It's changed.
It's changed, and I know there was a time where we had, the likes of VW and BMW who went out and set their factories up there as joint ventures with Chinese companies. And of course now China's taken the learning, producing their own cars, and it is Chinese cars on the road.
The thing that I always found interesting years ago when I first started going there is there was demand for, let's talk about an Audi A8, for example, back then, the top spec Audi. There was a demand for Audi A8 without Chinese script on the back. Now, if you had Chinese script on the back, that meant it was an Audi A8 that was built in China. So an Audi A8 without the script on the back was a German-built one, and that was seen as being so much more desirable. That has completely changed, and people are just sort of moving away from the European brands, but also Chinese-built cars, Chinese-built models are in such demand. And I mean, you've seen loads of them, the Zeekrs and things. They're really good, and they're the ones that are really going to make the premium brands, the BMWs, the Mercedes, the Audis, sit up and think, look what's coming.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. I think the whirlwind for me was the show. And then once we'd got that first day out of the way, it was straight on a bullet train for about 7 hours to head to Eastern China to see Zeekr's operation there. And their factory, I thought, was fascinating. And of course, this is a car company that launched in 2021. They threw up this massive factory. I think it was 1.3 million square meters in a couple of years. And, and it was seeing how quickly that, they've established factories and new model builds and design. They've got design center and engineering centers in Gothenburg. This is a brand from start. And I know they've got the might of the Geely, massive car empire behind them, but it was the speed, and it was also just how state of the art the factories were. So the factory that I went to, robots outnumber people on the production lines 10 to 1. So in the welding facility, it was literally, it's robotic. It's like this incredible choreographed ballet with like little robots running around picking up parts that are all neatly stacked up to the ceilings in this fast welding facility. And you only actually see the people when you get towards the end of the line on that final pass, where they're all over everything, checking the shut lines and the quality of the paint, and do the visors, come down properly. And I thought that was, it's that scale of how quickly they're able to do something, and they're not like a legacy car maker adapting factories that have been making petrol and diesel for years. So
Yeah.
they're coming at it from a very different angle, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's the fact that you said that 2021 Zeekr, I can remember going pre-COVID to China and then post-COVID, and completely different. All these car companies have popped up, and they are really good car companies making really good cars. And as you say, they've learned quickly. They're doing things differently. And isn't the train great? Wasn't the train great?
Oh, I loved the train. It was so exciting. I mean, it was just such a privilege actually to sort of
Yeah.
spend Saturday on a train crossing China. And you do realize, like you said, there are, it's the tower blocks, but also I was surprised at how green it was. And I
Yeah.
was talking to somebody local about that, and they said, yeah, they've planted, I think they were saying since the 80s or 90s, 1 billion trees.
Yeah,
And
doesn't surprise me.
and it's incredibly leafy and green, and the cities are leafy and green, and all of that. It just wasn't what I expected. So no, I loved it, and I've come away thinking I'd do it differently next time. Definitely want more time at the show, simply to get around and see more stuff. But yeah,
Yeah.
I can't wait to go back.
That's why I want to go on holiday there. It does seem green. My favorite train fact is KFC is a huge thing in China. Apparently, it's way better than the KFC we get here.
Yeah.
But people on the train will order KFC and have it delivered to the train at the next station. So you don't bother with a buffet car. You get KFC sort of Uber
Yeah.
eated to you on the train. Incredible.
I did see lots of people eating KFC on the train, so that will be
That was
why.
it.
But also, KFC is everywhere.
I
I
know.
couldn't get over it. KFC and Starbucks, which again wasn't
Yeah, I know.
expecting.
It's
Anyway,
a bit sad. Anyway.
what about you when you were out there? What were you driving? What were you looking at?
Well, I was with Chery. Chery, of course, make a motor in JQ. JQ is or was the best-selling car in the UK in March. We're waiting for the April figures to come out any day now. Chery International. So we've already got a motor in JQ. We've got Lipass coming. Talk about that in a second. We've got Delivan, their commercial vehicle offering. We'll talk about Freelander as well. That's probably coming to the UK. Chery's own cars. iCar as well is coming to the UK. So Chery really wants to be the Volkswagen Group of China. I think they've got that lineup, and they let me drive one of the new Lipass models, which I'm probably not allowed to say. I saw one small Lipass, had a secret preview of a small Lipass. It looked sensational.
Did
It
it?
genuinely, this is a small car, and I can't say too much other than it looked like a cross between an Alfa Romeo and an Aston Martin.
Oh wow!
It was brilliant. And I drove the Lipass L8, which they put us in a car park with a load of cones and saying, drive faster, right? It's a big family SUV. But, the same with all the other cars. The quality's good. The drivetrain is really good. Plug-in hybrid that probably goes 600 miles or more with a full tank of fuel and a full charge. And people just, look at the sales numbers, particularly of the JQ7. People like these cars. They like the style, they like the quality, and they like the value.
Yeah, it was interesting for me, because one of the things I thought when after I've been there for a few days was that a lot of the cars look the same. There are a lot of large, kind of slightly blobby SUVs on the roads, I thought. And I think when you do see these odd gems that are really beautifully designed, and I thought the Zeekr 7 GT, which is called the 007 over there, which made me laugh. Obviously, Mr. Bond's lawyers haven't allowed that for Europe. But then I also saw they've got this sort of quad motor high performance EV, the Zeekr 001. And they had one of those at the head office that I went to. What a great looking car. And performance on it, astonishing. So I think there is some really good stuff happening with design. I still did think that a lot of the stuff would looked a bit the same, and there wasn't that differentiation there that we see amongst European manufacturers, for example.
Yeah, the one thing I would say is that the Chinese learn fast, and I think we are going to see, as I mentioned, that Li Pass, and I also saw the new Amoda E5, the sort of the first car they launched, the first electric
Mm.
car they launched here. They facelifted it and given it a lot of revisions. It does look completely different. Looks really nice. The Amoda 4 as well, which I'm told will actually come as an electric car as well. Small, looks really nice. They do
Okay.
start to look different. So I think they're learning fast, and that will apply to the design as well.
Okay. So I think the big story for me for what I've been looking at is I'm going to take us away from China now, back to one of the legacy car makers, back to Volkswagen. And so I've been out and spent some time with the new Polo, and I think you've seen it as well, haven't you, Steve? And for me, it was so nice to see that VW has got his mojo back. I thought the Polo was adorable. I really liked it. I loved everything from those retro touches inside where they've got the digital cassette recorder that reminded me of those days when I used to record the top 40 on the radio on Sunday nights onto my cassette. So I didn't have to buy the singles. And do you remember you used to, when your cassette got jammed in your stereo in the car, that always had a flip front that you had to take off so it didn't get
Yep.
stolen. You'd have to rewind the tape back in with a pencil. So
Pencil.
I just
Yep. Exactly.
it was nostalgic for me in a different way to say the Renault 5 is, but it just does the right thing. And I think Andreas Mint, who's leading VW's design, is doing an absolutely brilliant job. I mean, let's face it, he was literally designed. So he was literally born, wasn't he, to design the new Polo? Literally,
Oh,
he's called Mint. Like what?
absolutely.
But they are nailing it, and I think it's things like just the subtle door handles that were back, and just it feels good quality. It felt to me like this is VW doing what I grew up loving about VW, was that they just make great solid cars that have got just enough quirk. They're not weird. They do what they need to do really well. And I've got to say that video is flying on YouTube and has had so many positive comments about it.
It is VW back. The thing I like is, I know Thomas Schaefer, the CEO there.
Yeah.
He's a great guy. I call him an honorary Brit, and they've got a sense of humour and a sense of honesty, which I haven't seen from
Yeah.
Volkswagen
I
before.
know.
That we got it wrong. We got it
Yeah.
seriously wrong with our early EVs and things like buttons. Yay, buttons are back. Buttons
Yeah.
on the steering wheel, buttons for the heating and ventilation system, away from the touchscreen system. But the quality of design, the quality of materials, sustainable materials, little design details as well, little badges on the door. It feels like a proper posh small car,
It
which
does.
is what Volkswagen should be, isn't it?
It does, absolutely. And it was interesting you mentioning Thomas Schaefer. So I was having a chat with him when I was out there, and I was sort of celebrating the handles, because they're just really nice. And he said he told me he hates pop-out handles. It's his absolute bugbear. And he was like, when he sort of came in and, took on the role, he was like, I'm getting rid of them. And he said every design now that comes to him with a pop-out handle, he's like, no, take it back. Don't want them. Don't want them. It's
Yeah.
not us. It's not what we do. And that was what came across to me as well, Steve, was that refreshing honesty that we didn't get it right. And we're getting it right this time. And obviously there's a bit of a bromance going on, I think, between Thomas Schaefer and Andreas Mintz, because he poached him from Bentley. And I just feel like the whole team just felt proud and happy, and they know that they're back on form. And I, as somebody who grew up loving VWs, I learned to drive in a Beetle. My first car was a Golf. As a family, we owned every VW of every weird shape and size. We owned old VW convertibles. We had campers. My dad had a VW pickup truck. We owned a random thing called a Volkswagen Trekker, which not many people know what that is. Do you know what a Trekker is?
It wasn't it a sort of slight off-roady sort of version of a
Yeah.
Jetta or something like
It
that?
was. It was like a little kind of off-roady, almost beach buggy thing. So, but it was definitely the brand that got me into loving cars, VW, because it was mum and dad loved them, and we'd go to VW shows as a kid. And I was really pleased to see, that they're back,
Yeah,
and to see, so congratulations to them. I can't
I
wait to
I
drive
agree.
it. Yeah, I can't wait
Yeah,
to drive
exactly.
it.
No, I think it's there's three of them. There's the I call them the axis of evil. So there's Thomas at the top. There's Andy Mint, who still owns his Bentley. Ask him to show you pictures of his Bentley. You'll be there all day. And there's Kai Havertz,
Oh, Kai
who
is
who looks
great. Yeah.
looks horribly young, He looks like a matinee idol, but he's their head of engineering, and he's pioneered the speed of development that they've learned from China.
Yeah,
And the cars, I've been lucky enough to drive. I think you drove a prototype version of the Polo. I've driven the
yeah.
prototype version of the ID Cross, which is the small SUV based on Polo. They drive really nicely as well. These aren't cars chasing Nürburgring records. I can leave that to the R models or the GTIs, because
Yeah.
GTI is back as well. These are just really focused on what people really want from their cars. Very clever.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. So yeah, so that was good to see. Anyway, should we go and talk about China again? We've
Yes, let's get back to China.
um, so let's have a look. Let's look at some. Should we look at some news stories? Because I'm really keen, actually, for you to talk about the Freelander, because I had a bit of a nightmare out there. So I spent a little bit of time at the show, and I said we didn't have a lot, filming with the Freelander concept, doing a walk around video that will never see the light of day, because promptly the day after you saw the actual real Freelander. So we
Yes.
kind of
Yeah,
wasted
that's
some
how
time there.
China works, though,
I
isn't it? They
know.
don't,
It's like,
we got
why
our
have
itinerary for Tuesday at midnight on sort of midnight Tuesday morning, I guess.
So why did
It's
they have so they had the concept Freelander at the show, and then literally 24 hours later they showed the production version. Thanks for that, guys. That was really helpful for me and Manos. We were
Yeah.
not
Well,
happy.
I was fine with it, Jenny. It's
Yeah, you
absolutely
were.
fine. I'll have a look at it. But yeah, it's a really interesting car. It's a big car. It's 5.2
Massive.
meters long.
Is it as big as the
It's
concept?
I think it's I think it's pretty much the same
Was it
size. It is a
big?
big car. Do
Really big?
you know what? They took us into a little room, took our phones off us, forgot about my Meta glasses, but I was very honest and said, "You need to cover these up as well," and showed us a slightly smaller one as well at 4.9 meters. So the Freelander 8 will be a 6, probably 7-seater as well. So there's going to be a range of 6. It's a range of Freelanders. It's a brand in itself, rather than just the one car. And it looks interesting. It does look pretty good. It's been designed by a guy called Phil Simmons, in the Freelander design
Yeah.
team, which is an offshoot, I understand, of JLR. I don't think JLR knew exactly what was being said about them at the motor show and at the launch. We can talk about that in a bit. But the car does look good. I think it will come to the UK. They've confirmed it will be available in right-hand drive. It'll be to European specification as well. Obviously, there are other right-hand drive markets, but we just want more choice, don't we? And if it's an affordable
Yeah.
SUV, then I'm all in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. For me as well, I think it's just interesting how this fits alongside Land Rover's plans for electrification, because, like you said, it's very arm's length, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's the
I think
approach they're taking.
there's a reason it's been done, because there's a joint venture in China between JLR and Chery. They've got a big factory there. They're not making anything that's selling. I mean, they used to make Jaguar saloons. They make Evoque and Discovery Sport. So that factory's been sort of designated the Freelander factory, and it kind of makes sense for Chery.
It does. It does.
JLR, they kind of letting some of the crown jewels go by doing this. But I interviewed the chairman of Chery, and not his first language English, and he did an incredible job. But he literally said to me, "We want to help make JLR great again." So they've got
No.
big plans for working with JLR. Whether JLR knows this, if you were just
Oh my
reading the
goodness me.
transcript, you'd swear that they were about to buy JLR. I don't think that is happening. Let's wait and see. But the relationship is very, very important to it. And they were talking about
Wow.
Freelander as being a British intelligent all-terrain brand. I'm not quite sure that JLR are aware of everything that's been said by Chery, but you've got to admire them. I think the car looks great. Dealers, I was in a room with, don't put journalists in a room with car dealers and retailers, but they were all over it. They're talking about bringing Freelander to the UK.
Yeah.
They're talking about iCar coming to the UK, or ICAUR, not iCar, because they can't put it iCar because that's owned by Apple. But yeah, there's a huge amount of excitement around the Freelander brand.
Yeah.
And I hope JLR aren't shooting themselves in the foot with this one.
I know. Well, it's one of my first ever launches in the industry, and I think you and I have known each other since the late 90s. I think you've got a couple of years on me. I started in 97, and it was the launch of Freelander. So it was literally one of the
Yeah.
first things that I ever did. And it was actually really nice seeing it back. And I was trying to think, does it matter now who owns the brand? Are we bothered by that? I don't know. I'd love to know what you guys think. So drop us a comment. You can email us podcast@electrifying.com. Does it matter to you if a name like Freelander is now being built in China and is a joint venture with a company like Chery? Or are you just happy to see more choice on the roads?
And I want to hear from people. I want to know what other dormant British brands Chery should resurrect, because they have said, again, another thing that was said to me, they want more British brands. So
Okay.
what brands do you guys think should be resurrected as a range of Chery new energy vehicles? And you never know, they could actually be built in the UK.
Oh, well, do let us know. Okay, I'm going to bring us back to Europe a bit, because I've got a couple of Renault news stories that I just want to quickly mention. We understand that Renault dealers have been in touch with customers to let them know that Renault 5s are coming with one pedal driving and steering wheel paddles to control the regen. Okay,
The four drives so much better because of the one pedal driving. It's more
I
efficient
know.
as well. Love it.
I know.
That's great news.
I've got a 4 at the moment, and I had a Renault 5 for a year, and I absolutely loved it. And that was my only critique, was that I really wished it had, one pedal driving and it had the paddles. So Renault have said, "Oh, we can't possibly comment on that," but we have definitely seen emails from dealers.
They've said they were good. They've said they were going to do
I
it this year. I
know.
mean, it's great. It's great news. And unless you've already bought a Renault 5.
I know. And of course the Micra, which is, the sort of, a rebadged version of the Renault 5, that had what we kind of knew the minute we saw the paddles in that, okay, well, that means the 5's getting them
I
soon.
like
So we've
that
had
car.
that.
Yeah,
The
I like the Micra.
Micra, oh, don't
Yeah.
talk to Nicola. Oh, you and Nicola will have a row about that. Nicola's
we have a row about
furious
anything.
that's true. Nicola's furious about the Micra. She gets really cross about it. Yeah.
Really? Oh, I shall enjoy winding her up.
Okay, well, we'll get you back on a podcast in a few weeks if you'll join us, and we'll set you and Nicola up against each other to discuss the
Challenge
Nissan Micra.
accepted.
But the other Renault story that I really, really like is the fact that the R5 Turbo, which is of course their £140,000 mini supercar, is actually much more affordable now than you might think, Steve. You might be able to pick one up for like 20 quid.
Where's the catch?
It's Lego.
Right.
So as a
CBA.
Lego fanatic, so I have a cupboard downstairs that is literally filled with Lego and every kind of Lego car build you can imagine, from my son. But I've got to say I'm quite partial to playing with Lego myself. This UK engineer and massive Lego fan called Dave Collins, he is known as Devon Bricks on Instagram. You should go and check him out. He's used around 1,200 pieces, and he has created his own version of the R5 Turbo 3E. And there is now a campaign going to get Lego to make this as an official campaign. If you head over to the website electrifying.com, in news there is a news story about this, and you can actually click on the link and you can add your sort of voice to the vote. If it gets to 100,000, Lego will consider making it, and it is an utterly brilliant model. The attention to detail is extraordinary. So
I don't think they need to get to 100. They'll just do it anyway, won't they? Sure.
I don't know. I think that's how it works. So you can submit things to Lego, and if it gets 100,000 votes, then they consider making it as an actual kit. So we do want to see that. Yeah.
They could have a boat face moment here, couldn't they? We could start a campaign, a really ugly car that nobody likes, for Lego to build it, shouldn't we? That's another one for your listeners and for your viewers to come back to us. Which really ugly car should we make Lego built?
I love that. Let's do that. Okie doke. Right then. What should we do? I'm still a bit jet lagged. What do I normally do now in the podcast after we've done the news, Steve? Oh, I know. We do the Barnard's bargain.
Answer some questions. Has anybody got questions for you?
We've got questions, but we've got a little Barnard's bargain, and I actually thought that this one might be quite interesting for you.
I like this. I like Barnard's bargains.
So Barnard's bargain this week is a proper rarity. It is a brave purchase. It does seem to be holding its value surprisingly well. It is a Fisker Ocean Estate. It is in the used listings on electrifying.com. So the Fisker Ocean, £18,990
That
on
much?
finance. Just shy £19,000. I think they're being hopeful, personally. 8,750 miles on the clock, and obviously Fisker is no more. So, would you buy this car, Steve? Would you
See,
buy a
I
Fisker
thought I thought they
Ocean?
would I thought they were cheaper than that even. I mean,
Well,
Fisker having gone bust, it's a bit of a problem if you want any parts. But there
yeah,
is apparently a guy somewhere in the South Coast who set themselves up as a Fisker specialist, not only selling these cars, but also potentially even updating the software and having some parts availability. I mean, I quite liked when I drove it, I quite liked the Fisker. You know,
I did.
it's got a taco tray, hasn't it?
Yeah,
Do you remember the
yeah,
taco tray?
I do
You can
remember
put
it
your
was a
fish and chip
it was a very wobbly taco tray, but,
you can
yeah.
put your fish
I
and chip supper on it or something, you know,
Yeah,
it's quite but it looks great. Yeah, those solar panels in the roof as well. They're gonna be a great help in the UK. But,
I
you know,
know.
where was I? I was in New York. Loads and they've obviously offloaded them all to Uber, and loads of
Yes.
New York, cab drivers are driving around in electric Fiskars. But do you know what? You know, it's take would I take a punt? No, I wouldn't,
No.
because no, I wouldn't. I just wouldn't. But interesting one, Mr.
It's a
Barnard.
quirky
Yeah,
one, it's a
that's
quirky one.
definitely
Right,
quirky.
okay, we will move on now to look at some of the comments and the questions that have landed this week, and don't forget, it's email is podcast@electrifying.com, or drop us a comment and we will look through them. And we're gonna start by saying welcome to our electric virgin of the week, who is Bluefish2303, who who left a comment on YouTube to say, as of the 30th of April, I will be in the EV club with my Ford Puma Jenny Select, which has been on factory order for 7 months. That's what getting the full government grant of £3,750 will do for you. It helped that car sell out, didn't it? He
It
said it
did.
was one of
It
the
was so cheap on lease,
yeah,
wasn't it, at one
yeah,
point?
so cheap. Said it was one of the last ones to order of those incredible lease deals last September, which came with the Ford Power Promise, which was the free EV charger amongst other benefits. That was a great offer, that wasn't it?
Yeah.
Um, and he has a nice comment about you. Great to hear from Steve. You should have more guests on like him. So your wish is our command,
Oh,
Bluefish. And
thank
Steve
you,
is back.
Bluefish 2303. That's good. May I call you Bluefish? That's very kind. Thank you very much.
It's back. So, right, I've got a carbine question for you, Steve. Andrew, who is a British Canadian, emailed in to say, hi, Ginny. I'm going to be moving back to the UK, living in the Suffolk area, and I am wondering what EV you would recommend for a family car. I would prefer a top of the range trim version, not highly expensive. Someone said the R4 would be good, but wondering what your views are. And could you give me your top 5 in order of choice? So we're
5?
not that we're not that organised. We can give you 5, but not necessarily in order of choice. Um, I am going to throw in, Steve, to that one, the Renault 4, because I'm driving one at the moment, and as you said, it's got the flappy paddles and the full one pedal driving, and I do really like it now because of that. I think it drives really well. I'm currently getting 4.4 miles per kilowatt hour, which is really strong efficiency. I know the weather's been pretty decent recently, but I've been impressed with that. And it's kind of grown on me. I didn't love it as much initially, that car, as I did the Renault 5, which I just fell in love with instantly. But having spent time in it and just seen it is more practical, I can fit tall teenagers in the back seats without them moaning at me. And, they moan enough already, don't they? So you don't need that in your life. So I would throw that one definitely into the mix as something that you should be taking a look at. Have you got anything you want to chuck in?
Yeah, I like the Renault 4. I'll take you to Kia, shall I?
Yes.
The Kia EV2 is
Oh,
about
yes.
to launch, which is a similar sort of car in size to the Renault. I think it's a little bit more practical, but if you can, our friend hasn't mentioned his price, how much he's going to spend. But for me, everything has to start and stop with the Kia EV3. You know, Kia's got a great electric car
Yeah.
range. I think the EV3 is a sweet spot. The EV5 is good. The biggest problem the EV5 has is the EV3. The biggest problem
Yeah.
the EV2 has is the EV3. The EV3 is a fantastic family car. It's got loads and loads of space inside. Drives really, really nicely on our horrible roads over here. Super
Mhm.
efficient. Loads of kit. Love it. Absolutely love it. It was World Car of the Year in 2024, and deservedly so.
Yeah, absolutely. I would chuck that in. I would also, and I'm not sure when you are coming back, and she didn't actually say that. So I would chuck in the new forthcoming Hyundai Ioniq 3 as something that you perhaps could look at as well. I've been really impressed with that when I've seen it. It just feels like a really nice package. I love the fact that it's not an SUV. I love the fact that it looks like the concept car. I think it's going to be, pricing isn't confirmed in the UK yet, but it's going to be probably in line with a car like the Renault 4, maybe a little bit less. So that, and I would also, as a fourth option, again, if you, depending on how quickly you need to make this decision, you've got to be looking at the Polo, I think now, as a great little
Yeah,
family car.
you have to
Don't you
wait a little
think?
bit for that, aren't you?
Yeah,
But
yeah, but I don't know when. Yeah,
Polo or Skoda Epic or the
yeah,
new ID Cross. They're great cars. The other one I was just going to throw in there because I know I mentioned it last week. Is Tesla Model 3 because it's so cheap on a lease, 295
yeah,
down, 295 a month, which may
yeah.
bring that into play. And it's a Tesla with the supercharging network and everything else. So yeah, I think we've done a fair 5 or
I think
more
we've
there, haven't we?
I think we've got 5 there. We're not putting them in order because, quite frankly, everybody likes different things, but there's a good starter for 5. If you've got things that we have missed, let us know. Drop us a comment with any more suggestions for Andrew, who is moving back from Canada to be living in Suffolk and is looking for a family car with a good top range trim and not highly expensive. Okay.
EV3,
Um,
EV3.
EV3. Steve, what have you got for us? Have you got a question?
Yes, I have glasses on. So this has come from Mark Peacock. Hi, Electrifying. I hope this email sees you all well. Yes, I'm well. Are you well, Jenny?
I'm well, thank you. Yes. Slightly
Absolutely. So
tired, but
thinking of going electric. So Mark has an XC70 diesel, had it for 11 years, 179,000 miles. Looking at getting an EX or XC40 twin motor Ultra. Problems putting off going electric. They drive to the Alps in the winter, 2-week holiday in Spain, and stop over in the Pyrenees. They drove an XC70 down to Spain. Do they keep the XC70 for the long journeys, or do they go fully electric, hoping the infrastructure is good in Europe? Mark says he's not the only person asking this, is he? So what do you reckon, Ginny? If you were going cross Europe in an EV, can you go cross Europe in an EV,
you
or
can,
what would
of
your
course.
advice be?
You can. The charging infrastructure is great. It's very, very easy. I don't actually think any members of the Electrifying team have personally done that journey, but we know loads of people that have. We've also got a really handy guide and an explainer to heading off into Europe for the first time in an EV that tells you all the stuff you're going to need to know. And I think when you start to look now at some of the cars that are coming through, I would suggest the Volvo EX60 would be something that you should absolutely be looking at if
Yep, it's
you're
got a
at the moment.
503-mile range, isn't it? And one
It,
version.
it, it has, along with the BMW iX3, which was our electrifying car of the year, and of course, Steve has just been made world car of
World
the year
Target.
in
Yep,
in
two
which we're
two
both.
good calls, I think
Yeah,
there.
which we're both jurors, and what I love is that everything that the BMW does, the Volvo does slightly better. When I did the comparison video, when I did the first look video with the Volvo, it was really funny because literally, like, the BMW has 500 miles of range, the Volvo has 503. One charges from sort of 10 to 80% in 20 minutes, the other does it in 19. So they've obviously just been really gunning for
Almost as though
each
they've
other.
been looking, isn't it? It's almost
Almost
as
as
though
though
they've
they've been
been
planning it.
looking.
So I'm off to drive their Volvo soon. So there'll be a first look video coming up on the website and also here on YouTube about that. So I think either of those would be great. And as for those drives to Europe, I mean, you really don't need to worry about it with cars like that now, which have got stacks of range and also, which more importantly, will charge quickly. Because that's the beauty when you're doing long journeys. I don't know about you, but I like to stop, every couple of hours and just top up.
Yeah,
Rather than drain your battery and wait for ages for it to fill. But I think
yeah.
either of those would be a great choice.
I get such a kick out of fast charging. I know it makes me sound a bit weird, but I had the iX3 and I didn't need to stop. I just wanted to stop and see it charge. And it got up to, I think, 330 kilowatts charging when I'm kind of
Mhm.
looking at this. This is incredible. Literally went into the services, had a pee, got some apples, came back, and it put over 100 miles of range on the car, more than enough
I
to get
know.
me home. But the key to European travel, as with any travel with an EV, is just plan it. Just think about where you're going to stop, look and see where the charging points are, and just think ahead. But it's
Yeah.
absolutely doable. The only thing you did mention is the XC40 or EX40. It's my least favorite Volvo. I love the EX30, I love the EX60, I love the EX90, the ES90, but the EX40, I just think the quality isn't good enough for a Volvo.
I don't love that car as well, and I think in the twin motor version, I think the performance is just too much in it. I don't think you
Yeah.
need those levels of performance in a family car. Anyway,
Stretch yourself for the EX60. You won't
yes.
regret it.
Now, Will Lilburn Quick has emailed in to say, I discovered your podcast a few episodes back, enjoying it very much. Thank you very much. And I'm now going back to your early ones, which is great, as I'm looking to buy something 2 to 3 years old, which were often new at the time. So I was in a medium-sized second-hand dealership looking to buy a used Enyaq with cash. The salesman was pushing finance options, PCP in this case. Have you done anything explaining the pros and cons of that? My gut feeling is to steer away from it because I'm suspicious of credit, having gone my entire life without a credit card. Cheers, Will Lilburn Quick in Shipley, Yorkshire. I mean, well done for that. I wish I'd gone my whole life without a credit card. I'm
Yeah.
quite in awe of that.
Don't be frightened.
So
Don't be frightened of it, Will. That's the thing. As long as you're in charge, I always say, as long as you do the maths, do your homework, know what you're getting into. Don't just say yes to the first thing that comes your way, but do some research. Don't be frightened of it, because buying on finance is a great way to do it and very affordable.
it is, but I think, like, I look at my dad, for example, who has never ever bought a car on finance. He's always paid cash for every car. I can see that. And interestingly, at the minute, talking about used Enyaqs, so I have a mate of mine who is a private hire driver, Jason, who has been 5 years ago was asking me about electric cars, and I said, give it 5 years, and the cars will be there that are affordable with enough range that will do what you need it to do. 5 years, almost to the month, he is looking now for a second-hand one. He's got a sort of budget of sort of early to mid-20s, and he has settled, after lots of chats with me, on a used Enyaq, and he's paying cash for it. But because he gets everything he needs, it's got he needs the boot space for
Great car.
suitcases and stuff. It's a great car. So,
Yeah.
I can completely understand why that a lot of people do want to pay cash, and where you
Yeah.
are with it. But like you said, it's not something to be afraid of. There's a reason why an awful lot of cars is it
Well,
80, 85, 90% of cars now are on a
exactly. Something
PCP
like
or
that. Yeah.
release.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And my rule is, if you're buying an electric vehicle, I wouldn't buy a new one cash. I would buy it on finance, because they do
yeah,
depreciate, and we don't know what's happening with the depreciation. If you're leasing, whether it's on a PCP or a personal lease, I prefer the latter, because the deals are really out there on personal leasing. Then you're protected. You can just hand the car back over after 3 years and roll into another deal. If you actually spend your own money on a brand new EV, then you might
yeah.
suffer pretty rapid depreciation. Not necessarily the case if you are buying used, because
Mhm.
let's be honest, used EVs are sensational value at the moment, and they won't depreciate as much as they do new.
Yeah. Well, I hope that's helped, Will. Let us know what you decide and what you go for. I'll do another quick, just a quick one. Hi, team Electrifying. This is from somebody it was an email. Okay, that's why. It's Robert Smith, one of the many of us who listens and writes in. Indeed, Robert. Hello, Robert Smith. Robert says he's a
Not
huge fan
not
of the
Robert
podcast.
not Robert Smith from The
No.
Cure.
Oh, well, it might
Might
be.
be.
It
It
might be.
might
Let us
be.
know if you are
He's
Robert
gone
Smith.
through life
Sure.
with
I'd
with
love
that,
to.
hasn't he? Sorry, Robert.
Okay.
They always say to
Oh,
me, "Oh, Fowler, like EastEnders." And are
yeah.
you are you yeah, Robbie Fowler. Yeah, cousin Robbie, as I call him. Anyway, sorry, Robert.
Sorry. Anyway, so Robert says, I'm a huge fan of the podcast, listen to every episode. So I wanted to share that I am officially rejoining the electric family. Previously had a Honda Y1. It wasn't the most exciting car, but it was easy to live with and a bargain. 250 quid down, £250 a month. Tom actually mentioned my deal on a previous show, and I do remember that deal, actually. It was like one of those too good to be trues. But he didn't want to swallow the final balloon payment, so he handed it back with plans to wait for the Twingo. In the interim, took ownership of my dad's 2012 diesel Volvo as he was retiring. Lovely car, but running it has been painful with the current cost of fuel. Then I spotted a deal on a Tesla Model 3, coming back to what you were just saying about Tesla, Steve. It was a Model 3 rear-wheel drive, 295 deposit, £295 a month, 8,000 miles over 24 months. I always said I'd never buy a Tesla because I don't like Elon, but at that price, my morals vanished pretty quickly. Took it for a
Yeah.
test drive, signed up there and then. I can't wait to be back in an EV this June. Keep up the amazing work. And for the record, I agree that Nicholas Niggles should become a permanent part of the show. You might have missed this one, Steve. Nicola was on a full-on rant a few episodes ago. And
Trust me,
there's been a lot
I've sat next to her on a plane and had Nicholas Niggles for hours. If you really want that, in your podcast, then go ahead. But Robert, yeah, well done.
Good
It's
choice.
great call.
Can I just make a point? You've been Nicola's boss as well. Have you literally been the boss of everyone that works for Electrifying?
Don't. It just means I've been around too long and I'm too old. But let's be honest. I was never really the boss. You guys were always in charge. So I just took the blame. That's all.
Okay. Right. Let's put another car buying question in from Ashworth 8378. Hi all. Still an EV virgin, very much considering jumping in, but not sure whether to buy a second-hand SUV like the Nero or go for a luxury new Chinese SUV. I'm not bothered by a brand, but I quite like the idea of top-level luxury for a budget price. Which new Chinese manufacturers would you go with, or would you take the well-trodden route of a second-hand Nero? Steve, what do you reckon?
Oh, you're going to ask me first. I hope you were going to go first.
I can go first if you like. I can go first.
It depends. I quite like the latest Nero. Not a fan of the old one that seems to be doing the rounds on Ubers. So the second generation Nero, I quite like. But again, it depends how you're buying it. If you're buying it on finance, there's some of these new Chinese EVs. I was probably slightly different to most people. I quite like the Geely. The Geely electric. Is it the EX? I can't remember what it's called. EX5. I quite like that. It's just a little bit different inside, and it drives okay. No, they're not driving brilliantly.
It's an okay drive. It is. No, I get that. I do get that. I kind of wondered. I was thinking about that top level luxury for a budget price, and it made me think of a second-hand BYD Seal. Because I know S.H. Worth was saying you were looking for perhaps a second-hand buy. I was looking through our listings. Mid-20s will get you a Seal. I really like that car to drive a lot. And it's got
It's not an SUV though, is it? That's the only problem with that one, isn't it?
I know, but I was just kind of trying to push him out of an SUV. I know.
The Sea, is it the Sea Line 5? I mean, I get mixed up with it. They all look the same, and they're these silly names as well.
I don't like the Sea Line as much, so I know you want an SUV. And this is where I just say, buy an Enyaq. It's not Chinese, so.
Yeah, or an EV3 or something. I buy used. I know we go back to. No, I'm coming. Go use Nero. I mean, they're super efficient. They really are super efficient, and they're a bit dull. But
now you've got me. I mean, have we got EV3s coming onto the used market yet?
I'm sure they must. They must be coming through to the used market now. But even a used Scenic. What about a Scenic? I do like the Scenic. That's a decent sized family car. Not exactly exciting, but drives nicely and built nicely, as all Renaults are. Google Tech. Just another option.
Steve and I are flagging with our recommendations, so I think this is where our listeners might need to step in and help us. So perhaps you could drop us a comment or send an email in for suggestions that S.H. Worth should be considering. What should he go for instead of the Nero, which is, as you pointed out, a very well-trodden road? Right. Got a few comments just to wrap up on because, where are we at now? I think we've been going through a good almost 3/4 of an hour, Steve, now. Because there were some comments on how short our podcast was last week. Patty the Geek, a regular listener. This week's Kilowatt half hour was only 30 minutes. I feel cheated of 50 minutes. My sadness is real.
Isn't a clue in the name, though?
Yeah, but the joke is, Steve, that we never actually hit half an hour. We never once do it. But last week we did, and I'm going to tell you why in a minute. DFID 7 Tourer, bugger me, a kilowatt half hour that is 30 minutes long. Rash 19785 corrected me. The Beijing Auto Show is 380,000 square meters, which is over 4,000 square feet. I was using
how many football pitches is that?
10. You said it was 10.
It's more
You
than 10. It's more than 10 football
is it?
pitches.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, but back to the reason why it was only half an hour. So the reason it was half an hour is it's a massive show and there's nowhere to sit down. Absolutely nowhere. And we had managed to get that little area at the back of the Zeekr stand for half an hour. And we were already running a little bit over because we'd had to like do our setup stuff. And there were literally people there going, "Stop it. You've finished now. Come away." So we were very strict on our half an hour, which is why it was a brief podcast.
And I'm so glad you weren't carrying on filming when we finished, because it was surrounded by this sort of, remember the glass sort of wall around it with a little
Yeah.
glass door in it? I just went straight over the top of the thing, didn't I? So,
You did.
yeah.
A couple of comments to wrap up with. On the Cattle 900-mile battery that we talked about last week, Paul Meyer has messaged in to say, the big news for me was that new Cattle semi-solid state battery. But rather than have a 900-mile range, I would rather have 300 miles and a very much lighter car. It would make it possible to build something like the Mazda MX-5 EV, which is fun to drive and easy to throw around. This is the question I ask every car maker I talk to, every designer I talk to. Why have we not got really fun two-seater EV sports cars? Why?
I'll tell you why, because nobody buys them. We all
Well,
love them, but nobody buys them.
I asked the question to Nissan when I was out in Japan, like, where's the electric 350Z? Where's that? And they didn't say it'll never come, is all I'll say on that one. But yeah, I think there is a serious good point in this, that we don't need cars that can do 500, 600, 700, 800, 900 mile ranges. We really don't. We drive an average 20 odd miles. Some people absolutely need them, but most of us don't. And you can actually save yourself quite a decent amount of cash by working out what you actually need rather than what you think you need, which is always the advice I would give to anyone moving to electric for the first time, is don't buy your electric car based on the one time you go to visit Auntie Gloria in Glasgow and you're faced with an 8-hour drive. Don't buy it for that one time a year. So yeah, it's a good point that I think lighter cars, smaller batteries, I'm in for that.
That's what it's interesting you talk about that, and efficiency in motors and stuff. Something that Lucid do very well. Not massive batteries, really efficient motors, and it's a changing world. People will get to know they buy what they need. You're absolutely right, Jenny.
Yeah. I'm going to end with a couple of comments on the FSD tech that we were talking about. That's the full self-driving technology. And of course, you'd been for a spin in a Tesla, and I'd been in the Nissan, which has got that new ProPilot 3 tech. Stormbroke message to say, I took a Waymo self-driving cab in San Francisco. I loved it. I like to drive, but I think you made a good point in the podcast. If you live in a rural location, self-driving cars will help keep elderly people independent for longer. So true. And I don't know if I mentioned this on the podcast last week, because I was in a bit of a kind of like, I felt like I was in a fever dream for most of China, and particularly on that first day. But there's been a really fascinating trial running up in Scotland of driverless buses. And they've got a conductor and they have a safety driver at the wheel at the moment. But the plan is that down the line, it could really help with, connectivity in local rural communities. And I just love that idea. I really love the idea of it, like picking people up locally.
I wonder
Come on,
if
everybody on the bus.
the old people still won't get on before 9 o'clock, because they probably be able to use their bus passes before then.
And then just one to finish on, again on the FSD. How is FSD at night on a twisty country road with worn or non-existent road markings in the pouring rain? Busy city streets are areas where self-driving will excel because it's usually well lit and a matter of identifying a lot more potential hazards than humans due to all the cameras and sensors. But what I'm interested in is the poorly marked roads in poor visibility. This was unknown user, RB9PD. And that's a good point, isn't it? Because they rely so much, don't they, on the road markings and what's happening around them on a twisty country road with non-existent road markings in the rain.
Yeah, it's a really good point. There's a lot of testing going on in the UK, and I want to be part of that testing, because I want the country lane scenario, not least in that sort of condition, but also when something comes the other way. I have been in FSD in the US in the dark, and it still works fine. But I said to Tesla, what if a camera gets blocked or dirty? He said, you're gonna have to clean it. And if a leaf comes over the camera, you're gonna have to move it. This is FSD supervised, so you still are in control. Yeah. But yes, in the US, I've used it in the dark and it works. It's so clever.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I was I asked the question when I was out there in Tokyo, because they've got a combination of cameras and lidar and radar as well, and it's obviously that AI based system. And the chief engineer was saying to me that actually it's still that rely it needs more levels. They believe it needs a lot more levels than just the cameras for certain situations, like when the weather is bad, like when you're driving at speed, like when it's dark. But that's definitely it's not, it's still that thought. I don't think I would like that thought of driving along a country road and not doing it myself in the dark, in the rain. I'm not sure I could give that over to a car. Could you? Do you think you could?
It's the same as doing it first time in the daylight, isn't it? Once you've experienced it and you get the
Yeah.
confidence that it can do it, you'll be fine. And that's why I said, I know Tesla have done the testing down the country lane with the tractor coming the other way. I want to experience it myself.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, let us know what you think. We love to hear your thoughts as always. Let us know about full self-driving, anything else we've talked about in the podcast today. Podcast@electrifying.com. You can drop us a comment. And I think it's time for us to wrap up. And you'll be very pleased to say that we are well over the kilowatt half hour, much more like the kilowatt 3/4 of an hour, aren't we, Steve?
That's more like it, as it should be.
As it should be. Steve, thank you so much for joining us. You can check out Steve's writing over at The Independent, where he is electric vehicles editor. And I'm sure you'll be popping up on the podcast again. And also, you do write stuff
Thank you
for
for
us
having
too,
me.
don't you? Yeah.
I do occasionally, yeah. Thank you for having me. Thank you for all your lovely comments. Really appreciate it.
And thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye.